This is Filmmaker Stories podcast, brought to you by JB Audio Post Production. My name is Jānis Balodis, and I have helped many filmmakers bring their film's sonic vision to life. Besides that, I have always been curious to learn more who they really are. Being an independent filmmaker can be a lonely place at times, yet somehow everyone I meet is full of energy, life, passion and drive. In this series, I asked them to join the studio and tell us their very own unscripted story. Born in Toronto, Canada, Jacob has always gravitated towards visual storytelling and a deep love of characters. His adoration for cinema of the 60s and 70s infuses his work with a tangible nostalgia, creating his own homage with every new film. As a founder of an interesting picture company, Jacob is constantly involved with the new projects, serving as writer-director on selected scripts, including the just completed satire, Liars and Cheats. There's a lot to the job, but looking for damn good content seems to take up most of his time.
As early as I can remember, I wanted to make movies. It was just always something I wanted to do. It was a possibility for me in terms of that I was encouraged to do it. You know, I wasn't up against a wall. My family was up for it. And I was always working towards making movies. I was always convincing my teachers, can I make a movie instead of writing an essay? Or, you know, can I do this instead of this project? And usually it was a yes. It wasn't really a decision to say, like, this project made me want to produce or want to direct. It was really something that I always wanted to do from a very early age. It was almost like, what else am I going to do? I was directing stuff with my friends. I was writing them with them. It's really just like, well, who's going to make it? You're going to make it. And then you end up being the producer. I mean, I don't know if I ever wanted to actually be a producer. I just kind of fell into it because, like so many young filmmakers who can't get their stuff made, you find the only way to get your stuff made is to do it yourself. First, it was all the shorts I did or music videos and stuff like that. And then when I started getting projects I was developing and scripts I was writing or anything like that, you know, you try and get producers on board or help on board, but inevitably, nobody cares about the project as much as you care about the project, ever. And it's really rare to find someone who you bring onto a project who's going to hold that attention, who's going to keep the priority, who's going to always have that passion for the project. So you end up just doing it yourself. My ideal side would say that people make films because they can't possibly think of anything else they'd like to do in life. It's hard to make a movie because it's not like you're a painter and you could do it yourself. You're not a photographer, you can do it yourself. You know, you've got to get like hundreds and hundreds, sometimes thousands of people together. You sometimes have to fly around the world. You go to these locations. Tons of money is involved. So maybe at first, you know, you're doing it for another reason, but then I don't think you're going to keep it up. You know, people make movies because they cannot think of anything else they'd rather do. I think if it's not the case, then they usually stop making movies because it's too much hard work to do if you don't absolutely love it to death. I just finished my first feature film called Liars and Cheats. And the reason I did it was pretty clear, actually. It was that one of my best buddies was in town. He lives in LA, and we went to film school together. And he came in for New Year's, and he was there for 2 weeks, and we had a great time. And it was like his last night in town. And we were sitting there going like, wow, we actually haven't like talked about movies or making movies or like maybe we could write this. Like we always hatch ideas when we're together, especially because now we don't live in the same place. We always think of stuff. And so we were sitting there like midnight, and we kind of then challenged each other to say, okay, well, you know, we've made enough shorts, we've made enough this. We got to get out there, we got to make a feature. Of course, we have no money and no time. So let's do something that we can do in like one room or one location with basically no money, something we could just shoot tomorrow, hypothetically. And that's what we did. We kind of challenged ourselves. We said, okay, we're each going to make a feature this year. We're going to write it. We're going to shoot it. It's going to be one location. It's going to be something we can afford to do. I think 2 days later, I just couldn't sleep since he left and since we talked about it. And I just woke up finally with like, okay, I know where it'll be set. I know what we can do. And so I wrote this thing in like 2 days, and it was one location, and I just kind of got the ball rolling. And, as we went on, I went to all the actors who I've worked with on my shorts, and I said, do you want to do this? And they said yes. And then we had a reading, did the script again, and then we were set, found the apartment, found DP, all the things you need. And we just kind of went for it and just picked a date, and we picked an apartment, and we rehearsed the hell out of it. And the thing that the film was, Liars and Cheats, it all takes place in one apartment, and it's all done kind of in one shot. It's kind of like Birdman in the sense where it's not technically all one shot. There's cuts that you don't see, but so it feels like an hour and a half, completely real time. So that meant rehearsing the hell out of it, camera-wise, acting-wise, hiding the lights, hiding the booms. It was all like a ballet, like when you saw it from behind the scenes, like all these people moving around like crazy so the camera doesn't see them. And it pretty much turned around 360 degrees at any given moment. So, so it's like no money. Everyone worked for profit share pretty much. Oh, and we shot it in 5 days. So that was another thing. It was like, well, if I'm going to ask people to do this, hopefully we'll start to make money from it soon. But, at the time, we're all there for the love of the project. It's a cool project. And I'm not going to ask people to work on a film for 30 days, for nothing. So that's how we thought of that. We're like, well, let's just shoot it in like 3 or 4 or 5 days. I'm sure it'll be fine. And it was somehow. So that way it was like a low risk, high reward sort of thing. And it's been great. And we were in post for about a year or so, doing, again, just, people taking the time when they could for sound, for grading, for everything. And everyone was really generous. And now we're signing deals, and we'll be out, streaming everywhere all over the world in a few months. Funny about the UK film industry, I was living in LA, and then I had made the decision I was going to come to London. And my first stop was, I went to the UK Film Council, which doesn't exist anymore. And they had an office, they had a whole branch in LA. And I emailed them, and they were like, yeah, sure. So we met with like the head at the time in the LA office. And the first thing she said to me was like, why the hell are you moving to London? You're in LA. Don't do it. She was like, that's my first advice to you. Don't do it. And she was British. And like she worked for the UK Film Council. And, and I was like, well, I am going there. So, so that aside, anything you could say. And she was like, it's just, so it stuck with me because it's true. Which is, she's like, look, here, like in America, like in LA, it has its own set of challenges. But she's like, everyone's so optimistic, like every student, every this, it's like, I can do this, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to write this, and I don't know how, but I'm going to get it done. And you can find other people who are like equally as like, yes, we're going to find a way. And she's like, in London, in the UK, like everyone's so pessimistic. She's like, you're going to go there, and everyone's going to be like, no, not going to, no, put it down, forget it. Yeah, it'll be too hard, and no, it'll never happen, And she was right. So I think on the whole, that's the big challenge about like the UK film industry, is that it is just very hard to get anyone really excited about something that might be ambitious or tough or out of the box, or or the film's fine, but like you as a person aren't, you're fresh and you don't have the standing in the business, but you want to go for it anyways, and like it's really hard to find those people who are going to be sitting next to you, like helping you and pushing you and encouraging you. And I think that's the biggest thing about the industry here. I think luckily I've managed to find some people who are quite excited about what they're doing and energetic, because you try and gravitate towards who you want to gravitate towards. But overall, it's like something that hopefully will change, and certainly like that's helping with more influx of grants going to younger people and people of like all diversity from people from all over the place and different backgrounds, because like you're getting a lot of the same people, you get a lot of the same views. When you start to get different people, you start to work with different views and different viewpoints and different amounts of energy, and that kind of bubbles up into people getting excited again. So So hopefully those new initiatives help. But it'll never be, like people screaming from the rooftops. It's not going to be LA. It's not going to be, Europe and Italians and Spanish people going, yes, like we're making a movie. Like it's hard to get the industry here, jumping up. With Liars and Cheats, it was a really great realization that good people and working with generous people and people who are excited about the project is really the only way to go, because so many pitfalls happen, things you can't see, whether it's production or pre or post or someone's late or this equipment's off. I mean, so many things happen that if you're working with people who are grumpy, or people who don't want to be there, or people who give you a hard time, or, it's just kind of ruins the whole experience. I didn't have anybody like that on this set, because I've learned from my shorts, the idea was always work with really lovely people, because you're going to be with them for a long time. But also, it's easier to solve problems if everyone's on the same page, and it's a better atmosphere. And there are definitely people who are on the other side who will say, well, talent's all that matters, and I'll work with, a complete asshole if they're the best in the world. And, I guess I would if I had the opportunity to just kind of hire, Deakins, which I'm sure he's not an asshole. But, if you hear about someone who's just too good to be true and they're difficult, okay, sometimes you got to work with them. But on the whole, it's like you want to surround yourself with beautiful people and beautiful cast and beautiful crew. And even the guy who we got the apartment from, Frank, is just like the most lovely guy and helped us out. He was one of the biggest helps of the film. I mean, this was the only location we had, and he kept on bending over backwards for us and doing everything he could, and he didn't have to. But I could have chosen another apartment, and I would have had a lot more problems, I'm sure, with someone who just wasn't willing to kind of go the extra mile. And that's hard to find. So if you have like a second thought about somebody, it's probably right. Some deep down the line, something will happen, and that probably the true colors will come out, and you'll realize, damn it, I knew this was going to happen, and now I'm stuck here. It really reminded me of like how hard it is to get a movie made, and I know how hard it is to try and get money, even grants, even government. Everyone's vying for it, and the forms are like 30 pages long when they really only need to be 2. And so it's just like to say, oh, I'm going to make a movie for £200,000, you might as well say you're making a movie for 30 million if you have none, because it's just so hard to get money for it. And then you owe people money, and then there's debts, and then it's just so much involved. So for me to just say like, okay, I'm just going to make a movie. What do I have in my bank account? Who wants to work on this? One location, get it done, get it out there, because I was so tired of trying to convince everybody in the world to make a movie when I just wanted to find a way to just do it myself. So I'm very aware that the next one I make, we might also just turn around and say, okay, let's make another movie for whatever we can afford right now, or one really small investment, whatever that may be. Hopefully, I get to make more movies and a little more money in the movies, but that's also going to come with a lot more restrictions. Can't do this, don't do this. Well, if you do this, you can do it, but then, you're going to lose this and me and him and her. So it's something to remember that, like, it's nice to do something by yourself, even though it can be harder in some respects. When I first started making movies and thinking about making movies, cinema was still the end goal, and it was still, this is going to be shown on a big screen one day, or we want it to be shown on a big screen one day, or even if it was a short, you still have that image in your head of like, well, this is what cinema is. So when I first started making movies, I was obsessed with being cinematic and being dramatic. But what's changed from starting to make movies to now is, one, the reality, sets in, where you have these like giant dreams of like where your films are going to be and what kind of movies you're going to make. And then as you go on, it kind of just becomes like, I'm lucky to just be trying to make movies and getting a movie out there. And I love the process of making the movie, way more than trying to sell it. And the fun part is working with people and being on set with people and meeting people to be on the set and having creative meetings. And shooting can be a nightmare, but then those are great memories too. So I'm just trying to focus more now on like the process of doing it, to enjoy the process, to live in it as much as I can. Because, you know, trying to make a second movie is tough enough, and a third movie and a fourth, they never get easy. And now, even if only a few years ago, there was no Netflix, there was no nothing. YouTube was like just starting when I was in college. So the idea that like films would be online was not even in our thought process. It was still like get into cinema, you know, indie cinemas show indie movies, and you still had like that in your head. But now it's just like you do feel like you can go out there and make a movie, and you can find a way to get it into people's homes. You can find a way for people to see it. And it's all niche now. You know, before it was like, well, you make a movie and it has to somehow find a life in theaters or somehow find a life on DVD. And that means like you have to reach a lot of people. So, you know, it's widened it out now. So you feel a little more confident that you can make a small movie and not spend a lot of money on it, and then, you know, get whatever you're going to get back in profits through these niche places, and people will see it and appreciate it. And, you know, it's a cool feeling to go out there and go like, you can do something small and put it out there small, but it's comparative to what you put in, you know? So being an indie filmmaker, really the first thing you have to think about for reality is money. Where are you going to get the money? But, you know, it's a really long game. So you have to learn how to kind of contain your expectations, as any filmmaker, I think, but especially like working in the indie scene. You just can't get too excited, you know? You can't get too ahead of yourself, because like it's a long game just to get the money for the film, and that could even fall apart at the last minute. So the money is always like the biggest obstacle, but it also means like as an indie filmmaker, usually it's just you. Maybe you have a good partner with you. But, you know, a lot of people are just working alone at the beginning. And it means you have to not only care a lot about it, but you have to find a way to convince everybody you talk to love it as much as you do in their own respect, you know? So if you want to convince this great production designer and this great cinematographer and this great actor and all these people, you know, you want to find out like why they would really want to take it on, and you got to kind of get excited about their field in the film. The other skill that you need, probably more than like making the money, because it helps you get the money and helps you get people and helps you get everything, is just the power to like convince people. But truthfully, you know, you're not trying to fool anybody. You have to get in their mindset and say, well, this is why I think it would be great to work together on this. It's great to start having partners in crime as you go on, and then, you know, it's like building a team. And then, of course, if you are looking for money, the more great people you have, the easier it is to try and look for money. So I think the biggest tool you can have for yourself is just learning how to put your passion into an email or into a meeting or into a package or into the stills you pick. And it's a tough road, but if you can do that, then you have a much better chance of making it. Now I just try and make as much time for pre-production as humanly possible. You know, I just wanted to give myself loads of time in pre-production, more time than I maybe needed, because I didn't want to be like rushing around like a madman for a month or 2 months. I want to rehearse as much time as possible. I want time to play around with the actors and change up the dialogue and work on the shots and plan everything so the production just gets that much easier. And then on the production, what I'd like to do next time is that we shot for 5 days, you know, in one apartment in basically one shots. So it required extensive planning to get it all done in 5 days. There was like almost no room for error. But on the next time, hopefully a little more money, a little more time, I would love to be able to go to set and just talk with the DP, talk with the actors, let them like figure out the blocking right then and there. Okay, what camera works, and really like flow on the day and let everything be completely reactive. And then in post-production for Liars, I mean, it took like a year and a bit to do sound. Sound just kind of took me by surprise. So I guess the answer is like, things always take longer than you think they will. And even though you keep making movies and you keep thinking, okay, I know how long this will take, you make an estimate, it's like always like 5 times as long as the estimate. Things just come up, things are just not easy. Like I take pride in knowing every part of filmmaking, and I don't just like poo-poo sound away. Like I knew it was so important to this film because it's just dialogue. It's like a play on film. So it's all dialogue. But I still thought like, well, how long could it possibly take? You know, we just need to do this, a little ADR, a little this. But there's no magic button for like any problem. You know, something comes up, and things come up every day, all the time. There's just never any magic button for this, for that, for this. And you're like, well, could you just do this? And he's like, well, no. He's like, it's going to take time, you know? No matter what you do, and no matter what different process you have with making the film, like for this film, for Liars, I knew pretty early on it's going to be all one shot, or we're shooting in like different takes, but it's going to feel like one shot. So I went to the grader and I was like, it's all one shot, so it'll be easy. Because we just have to come up with this and then, match it. And with the sound guy, I was like, well, only one location and everyone's going to sound the same every day. And, so whatever we do to one, we can kind of like follow that through. And everybody said the same thing to me. You're like, well, yeah, we don't have these challenges, but we have all these challenges. I was like, oh, the grader was like, now I have to like continually change the grade throughout the whole film without anyone seeing it. Because, different days and different this, and you want to change the things here and here and here, and there's no cuts. So everything has to be absolutely seamless. And she's like, that's tough. And then, the sound guys are like, yeah, like everything has to sound the same at all times because there's no change of location, there's no change of atmosphere, there's no change of music, there's no cuts to just refresh your mind. So you put a little ADR here, or this doesn't sound so great, and any change you make, the audience is completely acutely aware of like, oh, that doesn't sound exactly the same as everything else has. So that has to be seamless. And the surround sound, again, there's no cuts, so it's like all has to smooth out. So it's just like, I'm thinking, I've done it this way, it'll be easier, it'll be great. And then someone just finds another way to say, no, it's different, but completely as challenging. So that's another funny thing to remember for the next film and any film. It's like there's always a complete new set of challenges for whatever way you make a film. As you can imagine, with every festival being canceled in 2020 because of COVID, I really haven't had the festival experience or really much attempt to be able to have one with like the finished cut. But in my view on festivals, having like an award or a laurel from a small festival that no one on earth has heard of isn't really going to do anything for anybody. Festivals are a place to help your film, help other people take it on, help get more money from it when you're selling it. And so like only the big festivals do that. I think the biggest thing that festivals actually help you with is when you can consistently go to them. It's a long game. So what festivals actually really help with is being able to be there in person and see the same people every year and have drinks with the same people every year and have lunches with the same people, and you just see people walking down the street every year and you say hi. Like that is way more useful than anything. You meet people from all, over. You meet other producers, you meet distributors, you meet sales agents, you meet finance guys, you meet actors, directors, you meet everybody, especially distributors, you might see at all these festivals. Now you've got something and they're looking at it. And so that's like the most help that festivals can be for you. And I mean, in terms of laurels and stuff, for your film, getting a great award at a great festival is huge. But, just to remember that it's so it's a drop in the water. I mean, the chances that your film is going to get chosen out of like 4,000 or 5,000 submissions already, hopefully it's good. And then hopefully the people who are watching it like it, and that day that they're watching it, then hopefully the luck that it gets to like down to like the 10 that they're going to choose. I mean, it's just the way it is. I mean, good, bad, right or wrong, it's luck of the draw. It has to be great, but even great films don't get in all the time. So it's something to always try for. You'll make more money in your sales, but it's just you can't ever like lean back on it and say this is my plan, and this is what I want to happen for the film, so that's what I'm aiming for. It's like that should be part of like 10 plans you have. I'm going to submit. God, it'd be great, if it gets selected for these giant festivals, then I'm made, then it's great, and then I can do what I need to do after that. So it's just part of your plan, and festivals are one plan, and like emailing distributors is another plan, and getting your social now is a huge plan, like starting your Facebook and Twitter and Instagram accounts, and like getting people to know about the film and posting about it and getting it in people's consciousness, and that takes months and months and months and months. And then it starts to creep into people and like, oh, I know about this film. I'm aware of this film. And you can do that yourself. You can put some money into Facebook ads. There's so many ways to self-promote now and self-distribute. And I've talked to filmmakers who've made tons of films, producers who've won BAFTAs and Oscars. And I ask them the same thing every time. I'm like, does it get any easier? Like, you've got an Academy Award. You've got a BAFTA. Does it get any easier? And they're like, no, it doesn't. So there it is right there. So obviously no one knows how COVID is going to affect filmmaking going forward. But certainly in the immediate future, in terms of like the next few years, just the realities of it is a lot of people lost a lot of money. Investments are down, and, film investment, especially indie film investing, is already such like a niche thing. And it's already like, yeah, I might do it. Like I've got this leftover money and I'll invest it in this, or, with this tax break, it makes sense for me to do this. And there's a few different ways to do it, but it's not like it's an indulgence. It's not like a necessity for people. And it's always a bit of a risk. So I see a lot of film investing going way down in the next few years. This is not coming from anywhere, but this is just my opinion, and I hope I'm wrong. But it's going to be very hard to get funding. I'm sure the grants are going to go down because the government's spending all this money on more important things, NHS and getting everything sorted. The money from the government's going to be down. The money from the private sector is going to be down. And, films will always get made and money will always find its way to some people, but it's going to be very tough. I mean, in terms of crewing and casting and all that, I mean, I'm sure, like, just like everything else in the world right now, like, eventually we will get back to getting people together and, hugging and meeting people for coffees and stuff. And when that happens, I mean, the realities of filmmaking will be able to come back. I mean, I don't know, maybe there'll be requirements on set, but that's not going to stop anybody from making movies once we're allowed to safely go out and do that. It's the finances, it's getting it made. I guess also the other thing would be no one knows what travel's going to be like now, what restrictions or requirements are going to be for that, if it's going to be harder to get work visas, travel permits, all that kind of stuff. So if you're talking about making movies outside of your own borders, I don't know. That also could be harder and more difficult and more expensive and more restrictive. Hiring different people from different places, getting actors from different places. I don't know, but I'm sure it's all going to be a bit harder. So which means producing is going to be harder, which means that sucks. But it's all about the money, I think, right now. So after Liars was in post-production and it kind of started coming to a close, my mind finally started to like be freed up to just randomly be thinking about other ideas and other films. I've got like an idea I'm doing about Woodstock. I mean, that's a very general and vague thing to say, but it's just kind of takes place around that. And I'm just kind of living with that and revisiting all like the album to it and the music. And I mean, it's the kind of music I listen to all the time. So I love music to death. So making a movie that kind of is surrounded by music made sense to me. I've written a few other things. Some of them fell off, some of them come back. Right now, especially like with COVID and being home all the time, the ideas are coming and going and coming and going, and I'll jump to a script that I just that moment have, oh yeah, I want to write this thing right now about this script, and then a week later I might go, oh, this came into my head, I'm going to sit down and write this. So I'm just letting the ideas flow as they may, and like the first draft of this Woodstock script is going to be a mess. It's just going to be like I'm the only person who's going to make sense of it. But I've never done it that way before. I've never just kind of like let a script meander and write like the ending and the middle and this bit, and I don't even know what bit this is going to be, but I'm writing it. I'm just letting whatever is in the moment come to the page, and then once I have like 100 pages or something out there, then I'll start to kind of look at what I've got and place it and, you know, massage it into place and start having a draft that's readable by someone other than me.
Thanks for listening, and I hope you enjoyed this episode. The aim for the podcast is to provide a platform for first-time filmmakers to tell their stories, share their thoughts, knowledge and views, but most importantly, support and encourage others to follow their dreams. So please, like, share, rate and leave comments, but most importantly, subscribe so you don't have to miss the next episode. Until next time.